back with another KrakCast short history. This is our third one, guys. We did the airport. We did.
You just really call them John's short history.
Well, kind of, sort of. I did the work. Are you jealous?
Settle in, Mike. Let's have a little rest.
We did the airport. We did the car industry. Now we're doing the Krakow train station. What is it with us and transport? What's the obsession with transport?
We want to get out of here. Please help us.
You're obsessed. You are obsessed.
Oh, you're less obsessed?
No, I like your obsessions. You do good little histories. I'm a big fan of this series. I learn a lot.
That reminds me. Tune in next week for.
You never send us anything.
Tune in next week for the history of Krakow's trams and buses next week. So. No, I'm joking about that. Maybe.
No, you're not. It's a good idea. We're probably going to
anyway. Krakow train station.
Before we do that one, I think.
Of course, mostly we're talking about the main train station, but not only. Before we focus on that, let's spend a minute on the other train stations, like the suburban, neighborhood stations in Krakow. Like all big cities in Poland, Krakow has a lot of them. Like 17 or 18 in Krakow.
I was wondering how you get 15 minutes out of this.
17 or 18. I'm going to do it.
Doing a history of every train station.
No, wait, no. Just a quick reference to this. Have you taken the train to the airport, Dave?
Yes.
I think we all
Don't
have.
get me started.
Then you pass through like 5 or 6 of them. There's too many on the way to the airport, but there's 17 or 18 altogether.
But one of the excuses they have that is they actually want to make that tram line into also a suburban commuter line.
That's basically what it is.
It's going to run all the way to Zakopane eventually, right?
What, the one to the airport?
Yeah, that's what I heard. The new,
we're obviously going in the other direction.
I think a different direction. Anyway, some of those suburban stations have been extensively renovated recently, like the ones in Płaszów, Zabłocin, Szymionki. Others have been destroyed altogether to make room for development in different parts of the city. Did you know, Dave? This is your neighborhood. Did you know that there used to be a train station between Galeria Kazimierz and the river? You know, there's a hotel. What's it called? I think it's called the Galaxy. Hotel Galaxy, very close to your place.
I used to be a train station.
Right in front of it. Right in front there was a train station. That's and in fact, until about 10 years ago, you could see, that strip of grass between the mall and the river? There used to be a train track still there. You can still see it until they renovated it.
Really?
Because
I play with my boy there all the time. That's fascinating.
For those of you listening who don't know, Galeria Kazimierz used to be the site where it is. It used to be a slaughterhouse, a meat processing place.
That's right. Yeah,
and that was the rail spur that brought in the cows or whatever.
And I interrupt for the first time. They've done an amazing job back there.
For the first time, yeah.
They've done an amazing job back there recently, adding outdoor gyms and really sprucing the place up. Isn't it? Flowers everywhere. And then on the other side of Galeria Kazimierz, there's a beautiful new play area, landscaping, space for bars, covered awnings, the
fountains and stuff. Really nice.
Fountains, water features. It's wonderful. Climbing wall.
Well, back to the train station. Kraków Główny, originally built in 1847, a long time ago. That's about 15, 20 years after the major advances in rail transport were made in England and Wales.
What do you call that architecture?
And at that time, it's Neo-Renaissance, I think it is.
Well, that sounds more or less correct.
Yeah, let's call it Neo-Renaissance.
Always well researched.
Anyway, that's after the big advances in England and Wales and rail transport. At this time, all over Europe, people are building train stations and tracks. And originally, the Krakow train station...
After the rail was invented, of course, not before.
After, Originally, the train station here was supposed to be located at the top of Długa Street, over there where, what's it called, Nowy Kleparz is today. But instead, a deal was made to purchase some land owned by a guy named Józef Brodowicz, who was a famous doctor or professor. Actually, he was head of the Jagiellonian University.
What was he famous for?
Famous for being the head of the Jagiellonian, famous for being a doctor, professor. He was a man of science, Dave.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, but I'm wondering what
it's a foreign concept to you, but
what achievement in the field made him well known. Usually doctors don't get described as sloppy terms.
It was something, you do your own research.
Something medical.
You wouldn't be
testing the parameters of John's research here.
Yeah, just do your own. So anyway, he had this big piece of land, as we know, just north of Lubitsch Street, just east of Pavia. And interestingly, the land included what was, at the time, a recently built palace. And the building is still there today. It's right next to the Andels Hotel and behind the tram stop on Lubitsch. There used to be a 24-hour post office. I don't think it's there today. But there's a Starbucks and a Pizza Hut there today. So that's progress.
Be a post office. Who cares? Did you really like this?
Well, it was 24-hour post office. It was the city's only 24-hour post office.
You have to send out something, or you forgot something, that's the place to go.
That's like 5 minutes away. Why do you need a 24-hour post office?
Well, because some people do.
At 9 o'clock in the evening, you have to send out something that's date stamped, then that's the only place you can go.
I think I'd rather have the shopping centre.
And that post office does look a little bit like an old stately home.
I guess it does, yes. I don't know what to say to that. Okay, yes. It was a palace, actually, not a stately
palace. Oh, right. It's like one.
Oh, and by the way, Mr. Brodowicz, he has his own street in Krakow, not surprisingly, ulica Brodowicza, of course. It's the street just north of Rondo Mogilska that turns into Pilotów. So that street is named after the guy who sold the land where the train station was later built. Anyway, construction starts 1844, finished 1847. Now, it's important to remember that at the time, Krakow was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, right? There was no Poland, right? And the rail line that was brought here to connect Krakow to the rest of the empire. And Krakow was the eastern terminal of the line, right? The capital of the country that Krakow belonged to was in the west, right? Vienna, right? Not the north like it is today. And so connecting Krakow with Warsaw was hardly a priority since Warsaw was part of the Russian Empire at that time, and due to military considerations, making it possible to easily travel between Warsaw and Krakow was a priority for nobody, and that's why no rail line was built.
Still like that today, isn't it, really?
They built well, though, the Austrians. You got to give them credit. They built a lot of cool shit in Krakow, like, you know.
Interesting fact.
The Viennese influence
no direct rail connection between Krakow and Warsaw until 1934.
Just in time for the war.
Bad timing, yeah, really bad timing, actually. So train operations start 1847, as I said, like 2 or 3 times. Krakow, the end of the line. Now, because it was at the end of the line, there was no need for the trains to pass through it, right, going eastward. There was nowhere to go, no track to get there, right? So instead of the 12 tracks we have now, that's 6 platforms, 2 tracks each, there was one of those big things. Josh, what do we call those things like where trams used to go in and get turned around, those big circular buildings?
A turntable.
Turntable? Okay, so there was a big turntable in the place where we have the 6 perrons, there are platforms there today. There's a big turntable to turn the trains around so they could go back to the west, right? Now, that changed in 1856. What is that? 9 years after the station opened. 1856, work started on expanding the rail lines east from Krakow, first to Tarnów and then to Dębica, and later all the way to Lwów, which at the time was the biggest city on the eastern edge of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The growth of the city and the increase in the traffic through the station required 3 expansions of the building, including the first tunnels going under the tracks, added in 1893, and the pathway, we all know this pathway that lets you walk over Lubitsch Street, which was added in 1898, right? Interestingly, also during this time, 3 occasions when it was almost decided to destroy the train station and build a new one someplace else. Once just before World War II, they were going to move it north. Once during the war, during the Nazi occupation, when they planned to build a new station on the west side of town, which was supposed to be closer to a planned community they were going to build for Nazi leaders. And a third time in the 1950s, of course, after the war, obviously, during the construction of Nowa Huta, when the physical center of town shifted to the east, and a new station was planned not far from Rondo Mogilska. Obviously, none of the plans were executed. Okay, let's fast forward through time a little bit. You're glad to hear that, I'm sure. Let's fast forward through time a little bit to the late 1990s. Main stations all over the country were starting to show their age.
Is this when you first backpacked into Europe, John?
1992 was my first time here, actually.
Oh.
But, a little bit after that.
Did you have long hair back then?
I did not.
Did you have hair back then?
So easy. Anyway, if you were here in the mid-90s, late 90s,
Johnny Sideburns.
You remember that walking into the train station here, actually, you guys remember this, walking into the train station here was like stepping back in time and not in a good way.
Yeah, when I got off the train first in Krakow, it was like the night of the living dead. I've never seen that. Like, it was like 4 a.m. and there was just homeless people everywhere, zombieing around.
Remember the smell in the winter?
The smell of piss, you mean?
Shocking, yeah shocking. The same was true in Katowice, in Łódź, pretty much everywhere. And the problem, of course, was money. This is just a decade out of communism. The government was not full of extra cash to spend on these hugely expensive infrastructure projects for a state-owned rail system that lost huge amounts of money.
Because it's weird, you never go through the actual main building back then. Even then, you'd walk out, you just got off the platform and followed the track around.
Why would you go to the building? Unless you had to get a ticket, I guess, but otherwise you just got out as soon as possible. Yeah. So this state of affairs was the background for the public-private partnerships that funded the kind of mixed retail office space transport hub development that we ultimately got here in Krakow and in Katowice and in Łódź and in lots of cities. But these projects take time. I can remember, I was looking for this online, could not find the name. The first company that was developing what later became known as Galeria Krakowska and the whole area around it, they quit the project. After about 5 years of no progress. They're dealing with PKS, the bus people. They're dealing with PKP. They're dealing with Poczta Polska. They're dealing with the local government, the national government. You can imagine the nightmare.
It's a miracle it ever got built, really.
Well, and I remember when they quit, there was a huge story in Gazeta Wyborcza that mentioned that the same company, again, cannot remember the name, at about the same time they started the situation here in Krakow, started the development in Krakow, they started an almost identical project in Brazil that was built and up and running and open and functioning before they had even, processed the legal paperwork here in Krakow, so it kind of, gives you an idea of how hard it was to do business here.
That puts bureaucracy in perspective there.
Yeah, that well-known centre of, organised, beautiful infrastructure, Brazil.
So another agency comes in, someone else stepped in, the work finally gets started in 2004, and for this new project, a simple renovation of the existing train station wasn't enough. The new plans called for the integration of the retail space with the city tram system, a new ticket office, everything located under the tracks.
Can I interrupt again?
Sure.
That was what made it so dramatic. When we got off the platform and walked around the corner, we were confronted with the largest building site any of us had ever seen. It was like, we heard this city was beautiful. What the fuck is going on, man?
Exactly.
And then 5 minutes later, we got to the Renwick and we were like, okay.
So the idea is to keep the tracks where they are, above ground, but to move everything else underground. And 3 years later, 2007, Galeria Krakowska opens, but not in the form that we know today. The underground passage that connects to the bus station and where the train ticket offices are, they didn't open until 2013.
Just in time for the Euro.
Just in time.
It's actually a clever piece of design, though. Really clever. It takes you to the platforms.
Oh, it's really well done.
Very short walks. You're in Galeria, you can be on your platform 2 minutes later. It's unbelievably well done.
So this all leaves the original train station building empty, right? After functioning for 166 years.
I wouldn't call it empty, John. I've been to the Lego Museum. It's amazing.
Thanks for skipping ahead there, Dave. Spoiler alert. Thanks,
sorry
Dave.
for talking, John. Continue your long history.
It was empty. FYI, it was empty for years before the Lego people moved in. Thanks for spoiling it, though. After 166 years, the train station is closed. Even before it was closed, totally, of course, the question of what to do with the building was a hot topic. Because of its size and its prime location, you'd think that there'd be a lot of people lining up to use it, but that was not the case.
It's very strange that it's not a hotel or a restaurant.
The condition of the building made it potentially very expensive for anybody who had to do renovations. But most importantly, the city agency in charge of preserving Krakow's cultural and architectural heritage, it was obvious they were going to make life difficult for anyone who wanted to change anything. And plus, on top of that, the city wanted to limit new occupants to culturally oriented activities. Mm-hmm. So that made the list of potential, occupants very, very short. There was talk that there was maybe going to be a cinema there.
Yeah,
maybe one of the chains would move in.
I thought that would have been a great idea because there is no cinema in the center part of town. It's a great business idea because it's near the train station, the mall there. So people coming and going, the location would have been fantastic. They also wanted to use the ticket booths there to actually sell tickets for the cinema, for the movies, which, would have looked pretty cool.
But apparently the cinema chains didn't think so, Mike, for whatever reason. I guess it didn't add up, and it just wasn't worth it. I mean, Cinema City, or what's the other big chain in Poland?
There's the Multikino one,
Helios.
Helios, or whatever.
Helios, something like that. Yeah.
It is a shame because that's such a central Platz. Just everybody.
The location is just amazing, right? But that's where we are today. Where if you go to the building today, you'll find, as Dave mentioned prematurely, Historyland. Historyland teaches Polish history and recreations of famous sites built with Legos. Have you been? Has anybody been?
Yeah.
Apparently, it's really well done.
It's really cool. They have Jasna Góra, they have Wawel Castle, and I mean the size of these recreations. Some of them are still unfinished as well. So you can see the amount of work this is. These are some of the biggest Lego builds I would imagine in the world.
Which are like a Lego Jan Matejki or Kościuszko or something.
Lech Wałęsa mustache made out of Legos.
It starts with what's the big Battle of Grunwald? And there's thousands of Lego figures on both sides, and the walls are an interactive video, and the flames start up and the countdown, the battle kicks off, and it's all interactive. It's quite
Is there a Lego Batman?
Yeah.
But you know what though, I mean, even if it is well done, it's hard to imagine going forward 10, 20, 50 years. It's hard to imagine that's a permanent solution to the problem of what to do with the building.
It's a fine building and it's been restored. It looks great. So it is I suppose, even though I enjoyed the Lego experience, and by the way, we're being very unfair because there's also a metal statue side to it, and a Lego store which sells Lego products, and a Lego play area, which is amazing. They've set up all these tables with boxes of Lego and special tables to build on. It's really cool.
Yeah, but this episode of the KrakCast was brought to you.
Do you think it's going to be there in 20 years?
No,
I don't think so either. And what do you do with it? You can't knock the building down. You can't destroy it. You can't fill it with something useful. I mean, and look at its location. It's just a really weird situation.
Can I say it would be great if they used it for kind of bar and restaurant space? Rented it out privately like that, sectioned it up. I think that'd be really cool.
How about a hotel?
Yeah, hotel as well. Yeah, it's not maybe that big though. It's not as big as it looks like in terms of a hotel.
No, you're probably right. Yeah,
Can I ask, what is the the building that now houses the Starbucks in front of the train station?
We were just talking about that.
Yeah, right. What was that?
That was the post office before that.
The post office. I was wondering what building he was talking about.
Yeah,
okay,
that's the post office. Yeah.
I thought you meant the post office was knocked down. Excuse me.
No, it was in that building for the longest time, and I should have checked this before I came here today, but I'm 90% sure that the post office there was closed, and the whole thing is used for like again the Starbucks, Pizza Hut, and the plan I think long term is like upscale, nice retail stuff.
There was one like controversy with that building I read about a few months ago. When they renovated it, they painted it to the colors that it had pre-World War II. And apparently a lot of people got pissed off because it had the same colors for the last 75 years. So like the people in charge of the city protecting the image, they weren't sure, should they have the colors that people were used to for the last 3 generations or the original colors from when it was
John's
first constructed.
John's going to start going on about trees now on the Renwick Watch. The city conservative.
How did you know?
You're bugbear. You were just about to fire that comment up, weren't you?
I was. Not anymore, though. Not anymore. Well, there you have it. Short history of the Krakow train station.
There's one thing that bugs me.
Oh, my God. Can we get through one episode without being interrupted at the end?
Silence on John's history hour.
One thing that bugs me at the train station is the whole like system of the tracks and the platforms, the way they're numbered. First of all, the numbers don't line up with the tracks. So it's not platform 1, you have 1 and 2. They're not lined up. At platform 3, which I use most often, you have tracks 1 and 2. So figure that one out. Plus, they're not in the same order. And I don't even understand why they're both numbered. They should be, platform A, B, C, whatever. And then tracks 1, 2, 3, 4. So when you hear, the communication coming over the PA and you only hear part of it, you at least get enough information.
Wait. Let me make sure I understand you clearly. Are you telling me that track 1 is on platform 3?
Yes.
But doesn't every platform have track 1 and 2?
No.
Isn't it like that?
No, they're not. They're not numbered like that.
So there are 12 tracks. Is it 1 to 12? And 1 and 2 are on platform 3.
Yes, and on platform 1,
I'm going to check you on that.
I think they have 11. But the thing is, I don't understand why they're not numbers and letters. So when you hear it, you hear at least part of the correct information, because sometimes you hear 1 and 4 and then you're like wondering, was the track 4 or platform 4?
Yeah, but the public announcements at the trains are wah, 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 wah.
Exactly.
You can't understand anyway.
So that's why you want a little bit more information there.
Also, it's very convenient the way you just... All right, Josh.
Well, we asked for it. He did it. We asked for it.
He's a sound guy after all.
I was going to say it's also quite convenient the way the bus station is just at the end of the train station as well. They're both right beside each other. You can get anywhere in the country or anywhere in Europe from the centre of our city.
And city transport, one level beneath that. It's all super. It's very well designed.
The bus station could use, maybe a lick of paint, maybe a bar.
It's already been renovated twice.
The Irish guy says bus station can use a bar.
Some kind of chemical process to depiss
enough drunk.
It does smell quite...
Did you say deep piss?
Yeah, it smells quite strongly of urine.
Can I bring this to a close now? It is, after all, a short history.
Oh,
so,
yeah, sorry.
We're so there you go. Short history, Krakow train station.
Excuse me.
Tune in next time. I think we're going to leave transport behind us. I promise we'll talk about something completely different, maybe with a connection to transport. I don't know. We'll see.